Today we're going to read Napoleon's Contest. Napoleon Bonaparte is known as one of the greatest military minds of all time. Under Napoleon's leadership, the French Grande Army conquered most of Europe in the early 19th century. His Grande Army of 400,000 men was thought to be unbeatable. However, his army faced an enemy Napoleon did not know how to defeat. That enemy wasn't another army, it was hunger. Napoleon once said, an army moves on its stomach. In other words, in order to win battles, soldiers have to be fed. As Napoleon's army moved further and further from home, it became challenging to supply them with food from so far away. Fresh food could not be transported because it spoils after just a few days. That means it goes bad after just a few days. Keeping food cold with ice helped to preserve the food, but ice was not easy to find or store. Salting food was another method of preservation, but it could make food taste unappetizing and could only be done with meat. Most of the time, soldiers had to try to find food to eat in the countryside surrounding them. Many times, the local people did not raise enough food to feed a huge army. Also, when an opposing army was facing defeat or losing the battle, they'd burn their farms and destroy their supplies so Napoleon's army couldn't benefit from them. To solve his food supply dilemma, Napoleon decided to start a contest. He offered 12,000 francs to anyone who could provide a way to keep soldiers fed while they were on the move. Even before the reward was offered, French chef Nicolas Appert had been working on a new method of food preservation. Appert placed food in a sealed jar and then heated the jar in boiling water for several hours. The combination of the airtight containers and heat kept the food from spoiling. The food was still safe to eat several weeks later, and it tasted good too. Appert submitted his food preservation method to Napoleon's contest. The French government declared Nicolas Appert the winner. They awarded him the 12,000 francs. He used the prize money to build the world's first canning factory. The same process that Appert developed, heating food in sealed containers, is still used to can food today. Directions. Read the passage, Napoleon's Contest, and fill the organizer below. So the problem was, if I go back into the text and find this in the text, in other words, win battles, they need to be fed. It became challenging to supply them with food so far away. Fresh food could not be transported because it spoils after just a few days. And it was hard to keep cold with ice. If ice was hard to find, and salting food was an option, but it made it taste bad. So go ahead and underline that section right there in the paragraph 2. So the problem was 1, finding food. While they traveled. 2, keeping food fresh for a long period of time. So we kind of had a 2-part problem here. If you need to pause the video while you write that, go ahead and pause it. The solution, I'm going to go to my key words here. To solve this food supply dilemma, Napoleon decided to start a contest. He offered 12,000 francs to anyone who could provide a way to keep soldiers fed while they were on the move. And then we need to underline Nicholas Appert because he was the one that came up with the method. And what he did is he placed food in a sealed jar and then heated the jar in boiling water for several hours. It kept the food from spoiling, and it was safe to eat, even weeks later. Okay, so go ahead and underline the parts that I underlined. If you need to pause the video, you can. And then we're going to write the solution. The first part was that Napoleon had a contest and the second part, and I'm going to go back into my text to make sure I spell it correctly, Nicholas Appert N-I-C-H. And I make sure that my N is capital and my A is capital because it's a name, it's a proper noun. Nicholas Appert sealed food in an airtight container and heated it. Go ahead and pause the video if you need more time to write that. The next part is explain how the solution solved the problem. We're always going to restate this question. So we're not going to use the word explain and how. We're going to start with this solution solved the problem. So I'm going to get rid of the explain how. This solution solved the problem by, pause the video if you need more time to write that before I flip it back over and go back into the text to figure out how it solved the problem. Let's go back into the text. So and then heated the boiling for several hours, the combination of the airtight containers and heat kept the food from spoiling. The food was still safe to eat several weeks later and tasted good too. So your answer is right in here. You are going to take that answer and put it into your own words. Okay, and if you need me to, go back and rewind the video to where I reread that and see if you can figure out what to write here in a complete sentence with your neatest handwriting. List keywords and phrases from the passage to show the text structure problem solution. This is where your notes can come in handy that we took the other day. Right here. And we're going to use the problem and solution. These are the key words. See if you can find some of these keywords in there. Okay, if you go back into your text, see if you can find some of those keywords in there and write them here. What was the author's main purpose for writing this passage? We're going to start with restating, and we're going to get rid of the question words of what was, and we're going to start with the author's main purpose for writing this passage was, and you're going to think just like we did the other day, think about pie. P-I-E. persuade, inform, or entertain. Okay. So choose one of those and write what you think it is, and I want you to give me just one sentence explaining why you think it is persuade, or why you think it is to inform, or why you think it is to entertain. Just one sentence. So you'll have one sentence here, and then give me one more sentence explaining why you think what you think. And that's it. So if you need me to go back and read any of this again, or go back and pause the video in other places, that's completely up to you to take that and utilize it to help you. Turn it into the basket when you are done.